Welcome to the Referrals Podcast, the show designed to help everyone from the solopreneur to the Fortune 500 company win the referral game. If you want to build a company with an army of ambassadors and raving fans who speak highly of you and refer you willingly, you are in the right place. And now, here is your host, Michael J. Maher.
Welcome back to another amazing episode of Referrals Podcast. Top 100 in marketing in the U.S., top 100 overall, trending in 14 countries. Who the heck is listening to this in Korea and Singapore and Vietnam and Africa? Are you kidding me with this? We're even trending in the Netherlands. It's like, holy cow. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for downloading. Thank you for rating and reviewing. And many of you have checked us out on YouTube and subscribed. I just want to say thank you for that. Welcome to Referrals Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about how do you go from prison to phone freedom. And I want you to think about that a little bit. Everyone here lives in a prison. We all have a prison within our mind of what we can or cannot do. You live in a prison. You are in prison in many aspects. Some people call it a stomata in the brain, which is like a blind spot. But what we hope to do today is we are going to give you freedom around phone prison. That's right. You have an issue with your phone, and we're going to conquer it today with a guest named Wally Bressler. Before I bring him on, I've got to share a shout out. Justin Brooks Knox. How about that name? I mean, like, my name's Michael Maher. His name is Justin Brooks Knox. Is that really your name, Justin? That's like the greatest name ever. So Justin says, I've been listening to Referrals Podcast for several years, and it is by far the best business building podcast out there with practical, actionable things you can do to build your business and help the world be a better place at the same time. Isn't that great that we can build our business and build the world? Much thanks to Michael Maher and his team for this, and I have to give thanks to Aga Rask and Sherry Mayer as part of the team that makes Referrals Podcast possible. So shout out to Justin Brooks Knox, shout out to Sherry Mayer and Aga Rask, and I have to remind all of you that if you have not joined our Generosity Generation, you need to do it. It's very easy to do. Join gengen.com, JOINGENGEN.com. The Generosity Generation, it is free, but it is filtered, and we don't just let everyone in. You will have to answer a couple of questions to get in, but we welcome you to the Generosity Generation. Speaking of welcoming people, we need to welcome Wally. Wally Bressler graduated from Hamilton College in Clinton, New York in 1990 with a BA in English, of all things. He started working in the mutual fund industry as a customer service rep and worked his way to the sales desk. 3 years later, at age 30, he left his job to become a real estate agent, right? We've heard that part of the story before. During his first 14 months, boom, he sold 72 houses and fell in love with the business. And trust me, with real estate, once you've been in real estate, it is never out of your blood. He was later promoted to sales manager, trainer, coach, and associate broker. In 2006, he started coaching real estate agents full-time. He's conducted more than 25,000 live training sessions, group phone training sessions, and one-on-one coaching calls. In addition to that, he's a self-trained direct response copywriter with more than 26 years of experience. Drawing on his experience in working with small business owners and salespeople, this year he created Phone Sales Secrets. I can't wait to tell you about that. It is a company, but it is also a class that helps people overcome sales call reluctance and procrastination so they can create the businesses and lives that they've always dreamed of. He currently lives in McKinney, Texas, with his two dogs, Cammie and Greta, and has 4 children, Mary Frances, Emma, Alex, and Caroline. Wally Bressler, welcome to Referrals Podcast, brother.
Thank you, man. It is good to see you. It's good to see you. I haven't seen you face to face, I think, since like 2011, 10? It's been a long time.
It was the Exponential Growth Summit in Dallas, Texas, with Kender and Reese, right?
Yeah, I think, it was either the year that you released 7L or the year before? It was like
2010 was the year it came out,
yep,
right?
Okay, then that's what it was.
I think it was 2010.
Yep.
It was either 2010 or
yep.
2011.
So I got my own signed copy. I met you. It was great.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And instant impressions, right? What's amazing about this is I instantly liked you. You're generous by nature, right? And you were nice, looking to help, and super knowledgeable, right? So character and competence, communication, you had these characteristics of referability right from the beginning. I mean, I met like 1,000 people there. I mean, we had 500 people sign up for our boost class. I mean, 500, and it was one of the best boost days we've ever had. And you know what? I remember like 7 people. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It just is what it is. And you're one of the memorable ones. And
thank you.
There's a reason for all that, right? So I think that, one of the things that we have to go to right from the beginning that I think is just such an impactful part of your story is you went to prison.
I did, federal prison.
So tell me about that.
Back in 2005, the market was going crazy, and I was doing really well financially. Real estate was treating me well, and I wanted to make more money. I wanted to get into real estate investing and try and turn some of that into some things that could take care of my family better, And so I got connected with a guy who we went to high school at the same time. We didn't go to the same high school, and he's like, look, and he was a loan originator. He says, look, there's all kinds of cool investment opportunities, but there's also a bunch of really good lending programs out there that will allow us to go ahead and buy people's houses from them and then rent them back to them. We get up and pay off their bills. And I'm like, okay, this is great. And so, we went about doing that. But what happened was behind the scenes, he was doing things that he shouldn't have been doing. He was keeping the money for himself. He was lying on mortgage applications. And, my fault was that the biggest thing was that there were things I saw that I ignored that I shouldn't have ignored. And well,
it's easy to ignore them when you're making money, right? Or having a good time, or you don't know there's a problem, right?
Right.
And so what'd you end up going for?
I spent 366 days in federal prison for mail fraud.
So for mail fraud, right? And what's interesting is no excuses, right? No excuses and that kind of thing. Nope. But and no excuses at the time, but this is the time of liar loans. Right? The stated income loans where you just said what you earned and, basically they gave you a mortgage, which is why the bottom dropped out of everything. And so somewhat understandable, right? And you owned it. That's what I love about having this conversation before we came on today is just how much you own it and just like, not only own it, but like, oh my gosh, this has made me a far better person,
Yeah.
How has it really affected you?
Most importantly, it's made me a better dad. You spend a year without seeing your kids. That'll change your perspective on a lot of things. There were guys that hadn't seen their kids in 10 years, but, I didn't see my kids for a year. You're completely helpless there. And it's reversed there. You're there in prison. You're guilty until proven innocent. Mm-hmm. So, so it makes me value life better father. I'm a better real estate coach for sure, right? Because I can help people look out for things that I wasn't looking out for. I can help them make better decisions. I make better decisions. I read paperwork more thoroughly now. So, there's a lot of things that were really positive that came out of that. And certainly my relationship with God, improved dramatically. Like when he wants your attention, he'll get it. So, there's a number of things that actually were positive that came out of that for sure. I appreciate you asking.
And one big important one that is maybe getting glossed over is the importance of reading paperwork. We coach real estate agents as well as other business owners. But it is amazing to me how many realtors deal with contracts every day and then never read the contract they signed with their broker. And then when they lose a listing, when they move or whatever it may be, then they go ballistic and call the broker all kinds of names. And it's like, it's not the broker's fault. It's your fault for not reading the paperwork up front. And then the other thing is, we've helped realtors move companies. They've moved. And then they realize like how really easy that is. It's a piece of paper, right? And they thought all these different things, but it's really just a piece of paper. And it's one of those where who you partner with matters. who you run around with matters, and you need to be careful with paperwork because it is a contract. And the other part of this too is what is that breakdown before the breakthrough? And you make a setup for a comeback. And that's really what I see in you is this setback is really turned it into a setup for a comeback. And you've already came back. Don't call it a comeback, because you're already
right?
back, right?
I've been here for years, right? Yeah.
But here's what's interesting is, you've been to physical prison, but we all have our own mental prisons. We have our hangups and we have our blind spots, and we have these places that if we would just figure out a way to break through the bars of the prison, outside of it is a freedom that can truly change our life, that can truly give us freedom from other things. And one of the biggest prisons that I have seen in sales, period, is the prison of call reluctance. The prison, we call it puff, right? Pick up the freaking phone. So right. It's puff calls, right? It's pick up your freaking phone, and some people say it like more harshly than even that.
Sure, the F word.
So
right.
Here's what I love about what you've done is you've helped others escape a prison after you got out of prison, and you've helped them conquer this really real prison of call reluctance. And so first of all, let's define it in your terms. Is what is sales call reluctance?
Basically, it's a psychological and mental block, for lack of a better word, that prevents us from doing the things that we need to do to be successful, one of which is picking up the phone. So we've got a block, literally a block, or a belief system, an identity, if you will, that either has been created because of something happened in our life or something that we've created, such that we feel like we can't pick up the phone to do the job that we need to do. And a little bit, we'll talk a little bit what those symptoms look like. But basically, we've created a block in our head or a belief system that says, hey, I can't pick up that phone and prospect and do what I need to do. And sometimes that comes out like, oh, I don't want to bother somebody, or, oh, they're probably not going to pick up the phone, or it's too late to call, or, the myriad other excuses that people give. It comes out as everything else but, hey, listen, I got a problem that I need to fix in order to pick up the phone. And it's natural, And the one thing I do want to say is, as we talk about this, is call reluctance is not our fault. Yeah. Okay? It is not a punishment. It is not a self-inflicted wound. And we're going to talk about it. It's something that happens because we've been growing certain things in our mind for decades. And as a result of that, it's created that stopping point that ultimately prevents us from doing what we need to do.
So where does it come from, right? So you're talking about these decades of mental blocks, if you will. So where does it come from? Where does call reluctance? I mean, we don't always have call reluctance. Even like right now, you have a list of 10 people. You'll have call reluctance with 1 or 2 of them, or 8 of them, and with 2 of them, you're like, oh my God, you just pick up the phone and call them, right? So where does it come from?
So there's fear of the phone, and then there's fear of getting started. And I really want to draw a distinction. Like some folks, it's not really call reluctance. They just lack of confidence, lack of knowing what to say. It's more function than it is. It's more form than it is function. They're willing to do what it needs to take. They just a little trepidation, a little fear, but they can come over. They can overcome it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Sales call reluctance comes from, I'm going to share a little bit about my life when I was younger. It's help you give you some perspective. It comes from things in most cases that happen, and everybody's got stuff from their childhood, right? But some people had more trauma in their childhood than other people did, if that makes any sense. And so let me give you an example. And I love my parents dearly. They both passed, and I love my parents, but my parents, they didn't know how to be good parents at the time. My father was not raised well. My mother, had a tough time when she was growing up. So, my dad was at home when I was born. I was an only child for about 4 or 5 years. And at that age, my dad, he would drink during the day. When he was babysitting me, he would belittle me. He would say mean things to me. And after a while, at that age, I started getting put to bed without dinner, like 3, 4, 5. And then he would get mad at me when I would do things, even though I wasn't trying to cause trouble. And then, I had something happen when I was 10 that should never happen to any child. And then at 11, I started looking at pornography, and then I started engaging in sexual activity at the time I was 12. So I incurred a lot of stuff that my little 12-year-old brain could just not handle, right? And so, and I'm not a victim, because there's lots of things that I've done since then in my life that have hurt a lot of other people, made a lot of bad choices. So I'm not positioning myself as a victim. All I'm saying is the formative years of my life helped create a lack of self-esteem, a tremendous amount of self-doubt, an identity of not being worthy enough, not being good enough, not being deserving. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so as a result of that, our brain, it's part librarian, part farmer. It's a librarian because every night when we go to bed, it's taking the day's events and it's putting them in places so we can make sense of it. But then if we can't make sense of something, it just leaves it on the floor like a book, and we keep tripping over it until we resolve it. And it's like a farmer, because any seeds you sow in your brain and you start watering and tending to are gonna grow. So if you're sowing, I'm no good, I don't deserve anything, I'm not worth anything, I'm a piece of crap, then every day you keep reinforcing that. And sometimes it happens from what people do to us, and sometimes it's from observations we make. I had problems with money for the longest time in my life because I thought we were poor. Because all the kids at school had money, they had better lunches than I did, they had Levi's, they had Nikes, they had everything. I didn't have any of that. So I convinced myself it was poor. In fact, I convinced myself of that so much so that I used to literally get a violently negative physical reaction when I was around people that had money. Okay. And so for anybody else, it's the same thing. Something happened in their childhood where, like perfectionism, it's a terrible thing. That's fear related, right? I have a client who got made fun of because of some shoes she wore to gym class one day and how she dressed. And so ever since she's had control over how she dressed, she never leaves her house unless she looks perfect. But she's also not going to pick up the phone because people are going to go ahead and think she's not perfect, right? And so it comes from any one of those things, either that people told us or that we told ourselves, and then we just reinforced it year over year over year over year. So we got to the point where we're fearing rejection, we're fearing failure. I'm saying so badly that we would rather not put ourselves in that position by picking up the phone, talk to somebody. Yeah.
The pain of calling is more than the pleasure of getting a new client, right?
100%.
Or the pleasure of having a conversation, right? So, so how did you learn about sales call reluctance, and what did you do to solve the problem? This is good stuff, right? Because here's what I love, right? Is if somebody's really never had a fear of the phone and never had call reluctance, that's probably not a person you want to learn from, right? Because they've never, it's like Michael Jordan coaching basketball. Why doesn't Michael Jordan coach basketball? Why? Because he goes, well, just jump really high and make every shot. And, the guys are like, I can't jump as high as you did, and I can't shoot like you did. And no, but just do it. How did Michael do it? He refined it, right? He just did it himself. But it's one of those where the person you want to learn from is the person who had all the difficulties and thought about it, learned about it, conquered it, and is now living a better life without the prison, without the chains binding them.
Right.
So I want to know from you, how did you conquer call reluctance, and what is the solution to this problem?
Well, I actually suffer from call reluctance about 10, 11 years. And it's funny because my junior year in college, see, you and I come from the same cloth. We're gregarious people. We'll talk to anybody. You know what I'm saying? Like anytime.
It might surprise you.
I know it's as shocking as it may be, right? So I've always been that way, but I've always had a tremendous amount of self-doubt. Really didn't like myself for a good portion of my life until I worked on some of that stuff. But my junior year, one of my classmates from high school's dad met me. He goes, "Hey, you'd be great at sales." I'm like, "Okay." So I took the job, and he's like, "Okay, here's a bunch of cards. Call these people and sell them insurance." I would struggle. And finally, he's like, "This isn't working out." I'm like, "No, it doesn't." So that was my first real experience with call reluctance, probably 1988. You know what I'm saying? And so when I got out of college, I took a job at a mutual fund company. I took a safe job, customer service. My parents were all high C and high S personalities, right? So safety, security, salary, benefits, all that stuff, right? So that's what I did. And then, I just, as I started, taking, what do you call it? Some classes on improving yourself. I took a a Dale Carnegie class on
Mm-hmm.
speaking and self-confidence, did a bunch of Tony Robbins stuff, personal development, read books, and I was realizing that what I'm believing about myself may not be true, right? And so I just worked on that. I eventually got to the sales desk where I had to make presentations every quarter. I had to get on the phone and talk to people. So, 1998, I'm 29 years old. I'm making about $100,000 a year, but I'm also working 12 hours a day for somebody else. And so I was like, that's it. And so then when I got my real estate license, my real estate mentor was like, here, use this script, call these people and do this. I'm like, okay. Picked up the phone, just started doing it, And so it took me a long time to figure out the things that I needed to do and understand, where it came from for myself, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But the real formation of this came probably from the last half of my coaching career. I've been, started coaching and training in 2001. I would say about 10 years ago, I got really curious because I'd be on the phone with real estate agents. I'd be like, okay, how did your prospecting go this week? I didn't do it.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, why didn't you do it? I had this going on, that going on. Next week, how'd your calls go? I didn't do it. I'm like, why are you paying me to coach you? I would be, be supportive, right? Loving, caring. Sometimes I would create pain, and I just couldn't get him to do it, And then I just started doing more and more research, and I had to go through some stuff myself, and I started putting 2 and 2 together. I read some books, and I'm like, well, wait a second, this has to work. And so then I started, applying it to my coaching clients, and and the people that I knew. And the next thing you know, like, there's a guy. Can I tell one quick story? Do I have time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a guy named Brian O'Neill, and he's an agent in North South Carolina, Greensboro. I mean, far north, Columbia, South Carolina, right outside of there. Okay. He's a fireman, 21 years. He's walked in and out of hundreds of burning buildings. Right.
Mm-hmm. Fear. Right. He's overcome some fear.
Yeah. He's got these tribal tattoos that look like they killed to get put on.
Yeah.
Saved people's lives on the sidewalk, and he said he could not pick up the phone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what? I'm like, dude, you must have, you got to take references from your life where you're fearless and apply it to what you're doing now. And so I put him through the process, had him read the books that I've been reading. We talked about it. 45 days later, he calls me and says, hey, I just picked up a FSBO for $540,000. And the guy's a builder, and he's got other houses. And so I'm like, from now on in, he's no problem calling or prospecting, And look, it's like any other coach, I can only tell you what to do, right? I can't do it for you,
right?
But he did the work, And so then I've had multiple other people do that. So, you would ask me about how we get over it. Did you ask me that as well, or?
Yeah, I think as kind of a segue into like the process of overcoming sales reluctance, I think that everybody that's listening to this needs to know is that this isn't just cold calling and cold selling or even calling leads that leads to call reluctance. People have call reluctance from calling their sphere of influence, from calling their customer base, and so all of the reasons and the process of conquering call reluctance is applicable to, it doesn't matter who you're calling, right? So I think that's the importance of this. Some of them are like, well, I don't cold call, so I'm going to tune out. It's like, all right, so how many calls have you made to your sphere this week? Well, none. How many of those internet leads have you followed up with? Well, none, right? I did email a couple, but it's like, we all know that, the communication pyramid, right? The third from the top and the easiest one within the influential zone, easiest as far as productivity and efficiency, you can pick up the phone anytime, is phone calls, right? It's in the influential zone. We want to get something done. We got to pick up the phone. So master the phone, master phone skills. So what's a process or two that will help us overcome like call reluctance that like Brian did or you did?
So, the first thing is awareness, right? Yeah. You can't solve a problem that you're not aware of, correct?
Right.
So you've really got to get to the heart of the matter and really go back to whatever point in your life where the genesis of this belief system, this identity, originated. And so the easy trick for that, and, this sounds kind of weird, but you can actually talk to your subconscious and it'll answer you. Takes a little time, but you just take a little 5x7 index card, right? Where does my call reluctance come from? Question mark. Leave it on your desk, read it during the day, spend a little time with it before bed and go to bed. While you're in bed, your subconscious is going to be searching, and eventually it'll bring the memory up to you or the memories up to you. So the first thing is you got to go there. And look, this isn't like learning how to bake a cake. I'm saying It's like you do this, and this, and all of a sudden you put in the oven and bake. So you have some work to do here, but the work is worth it because the freedom you're going to get from it, not just over prospecting, but in your life,
Right.
The people I've worked with, less procrastination, more satisfaction in life, happier, what I'm saying, more driven. There's lots of ancillary benefits other than being able to pick up the phone. The people have video call reluctance or video reluctance. They get over getting in front of the camera. So awareness is the first thing. The second thing is you got to observe, right? You got to define what it is. 10-year gremlin. Rick Carson, he calls it your gremlin, right? So you got to observe. You got to define it. What does this gremlin look like? And you got to define it. You got to put words to it. Divine what that what that feeling is when it comes up. How does it make you feel? Are you sad? Are you angry? Are you depressed? Are you disappointed? Like, what's that? What is that? Because now it takes shape and you can make sense of it, right? All right, and then the last part of that first part of the process is just work on letting it pass. Okay, and a lot of us don't strengthen our minds. The best thing you can do to strengthen your mind is do some mindful meditation. If you go to the Mindful Movement on YouTube and sign up on their page or subscribe to their page, they have meditations as short as 5 minutes and as long as 2 hours. And they will take you through mindful meditations. They're guided. There's some nice music. And what they teach you to do is to focus on your breathing. And then as thoughts come into your mind, they just teach you to help those thoughts pass, right? Because at the end of the day, I don't know anybody that's died prospecting that started bleeding profusely, lost hair, lost skin, broke a bone, right? Nothing's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to get to the point where you can make sense of it and look, okay, wait, that's just a feeling. That's all that is. It's nothing more than a feeling, and let it go. Okay. So the fourth step is right out of Hal Elrod's book. Have you had Hal on here before yet? Have you had Hal talk yet?
Oh yeah.
Hal's amazing. I've known Hal since 2007. I met him back then, and then we hadn't caught up for a while, but I met him back in an EGS. But the miracle morning, right? Doing your savers, right? Being silent, doing your meditation, and then doing your affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and then journaling, right? And doing that, because what we need to do is we need to reprogram our brain, right? We've got to take the same steps we used to get to the point where we had call reluctance, and then take those steps and do positive inputs, right? Keep telling ourselves the positive things we want. Read about things that reinforce, the good things about us. Visualize ourselves picking up the phone. You know what? One of the first things people should do when they do this is to take a check and make it out for $1 million or $10 million and put it someplace so you can see it, make it out to yourself, right? And then after that, two things: you got to find out what drives you. You got to find out. Daniel Pink talks about the I type and the X type, the internally driven, and then the externally driven. So many people picture a boat, picture a car, picture money. Well, first of all, if that's your carrot and you don't get it, that's demoralizing. Or if that's your carrot and you get it, what do you do next for motivation?
Bigger mountain.
Internally,
we call that bigger mountain syndrome, right?
Yeah, exactly.
What do you do after Everest?
I know, right? Exactly, right? Yeah. You climb and hope a plane picks you up, right? So, very good point. And the other part is being internally driven. Becoming autonomous, right? Getting to the point where you can do things that you need. Becoming a master at what you do. You know what I'm saying?
There you go. Yep.
And things like that. Mastery, autonomy, and that's the whole point right there. And incompetency, whatnot. So, and then I took a page out of Simon Sinek's book. Find your why, right? You got to find out what your why is, because once you find out what that why is and it drives you, you're now changing all these positive inputs. And you've got a why that you'd walk through walls for, right? Yeah. And so the simple formula is I'm going to contribute X so that I can impact Y. So what that means is our children are not Ys, okay? A car is not a Y, that's a what. The why is for your children is to make sure that they're financially stable for the rest of their lives until they have great grandkids, to make sure that they grow up healthy adults, happy adults, well-adjusted adults, to make sure that they always feel protected. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's so much psychology to this, dude. I mean, like we keep just saying, just pick up the freaking phone, right? It's a physical solution to a mental problem, which never works, right? So, can anyone overcome sales reluctance? Can anyone?
Can I say one more thing before we move on, please? And I don't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Some people can just do it, okay?
Yeah.
Some people can absolutely just pick up the phone and start doing what they need to do.
Yeah.
And that likely means that they don't have as many challenges with their internal programming.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying everybody has to go through this entire process.
Yeah.
Some people some people get thrown into the deep end of the pool, they swim. Some people get thrown into the deep end of the pool and they drown.
Right?
That's right. Yeah. That's it. I drowned. I didn't fight. Some kids different. So And so anyway, anybody can overcome this if you're willing to go through the process.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's not, I mean, listen, I'm not a licensed therapist. I'm not a psychiatrist. You know, you may need more help than I can give you, you know what I'm saying, in certain instances, but I'm telling you, if you just do the things that I tell you to do and you go through the process, you'll be able to pick up the phone. You'll be able to get in front of video. You'll be able to call people. You know what I'm saying? EXP's got all that recruiting going on, but there's a bunch of people that can't even recruit because they're afraid to pick up the phone, you know?
That's right.
So,
that's right.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So anybody can overcome it if they want to, 100%.
Yeah. I love that. Right. I love that. And it's one of those where I keep coming back to this word value, right? Is self-value. And it seems like we can make the call when we feel like we have value to the other person, right? And it's one of those where, you know, what is the value? What is the value you bring? What is the reason for the call? What is, you know, and it seems like if the reason to call is to sell something to somebody, it's like, you know what, that's tough. But if we can tweak it mentally, at least in the beginning, to a customer service call, to an invitation, to, you know, if there's anniversary, birthday, if there's a really nice reason for the call, then it's easier to make the call, right? Why? Because we have a reason and there's value to the call. The value to the call, if I call you for your birthday, is you feel good, but I feel good for remembering your birthday too, right? So there's so much to this, and you have unpacked so much. You know, what I love about with your launch of this, and I know it was delayed a little bit because you had COVID and nearly passed away from COVID. Man, thank God that did not happen. Thank God you made it through that.
Thank you. Yes.
And I know that. And he had glasses on before the call, and he took them off to, you know, to just make sure that, you know, you could look him in the eye and let you know that you trust him and that kind of thing. And it's one of those where it's like he didn't have to wear glasses before, but the COVID has affected his blood sugar and his eyesight and everything else. And I'll tell you, this is a blessing on those that check it out. It's phonesalessecrets.com. He actually has a free mini course where you can go through this mental and physical manifestation of you becoming a caller, you becoming somebody that has a phone as the friend, as much as a phone as a tool that you're not using, right? And we really want that phone to be a friend. We want that phone to be comfortable for us, and we can pick up the phone anytime we need to. Tell us a little bit about phone sales secrets before we go.
Absolutely. I was going to say something about value, but I'll just let it pass so we can go on to it.
No, go ahead.
Well, so unless we feel that we bring that value ourselves, unless we feel valued ourselves, feel like we value ourselves, we're not going to go ahead and make those calls, even if we feel like we're doing something for somebody else. That makes sense. Like I can't give you $5 if I don't have $5. So
that's right.
The whole part of the process is you can do all those wonderful things. And the thought process of how you position those calls in your mind is amazing, because that's really the way to do it. But if I don't think I'm worth it, if I don't think I deserve it, if I don't think I'm a good person, I don't think I'm going to add value to anybody else, you know?
Right.
Fair enough.
Right.
So, okay. So here's the thing. Basically what I've done is I've created a Facebook group. So if you go to a free Facebook group, so if you go to phonesalessecrets.com and register, you can be in the Facebook group. I've got interviews coming up with the people that I've used and studied with to create my process. I definitely want to have you come on an interview and do a podcast interview with me, because I think you can add a lot of value to the group with your vast experience. And we can even talk about, you know, handling call reluctance with respect to referrals and put a different perspective. So I would love to have you do that. And then, you know, there's going to be every Monday at 7 p.m. I'm actually going to go through an entire hour and 15-minute class and take people through the process. But the mini course, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, that mini course is just for you to get our information. It's not. I mean, it's 5 videos. And I literally, like you said, I unpack everything we talk about. And I take everybody through those 5 steps and tell them what they need to do so they can get the results that they want to do. And that's
What's
it.
the title of the first step? What's the title of the 5 courses? I know that this is not part of the programming here, but I mean, I can look it up if you want. I literally just got, you know, if you want to give me a second, I can look at it. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. Let me see if I can.
I think that I'll talk while you're doing that, and just kind of, and here's the thing on this is that this is one of those skills that if you can conquer it, you can literally do anything. You can fundraise, you can sell, you can talk to your son or daughter's teacher about problems that they're having in class. Like, can you imagine calling a teacher? You know how many parents have never called a teacher? Like 99% of all parents have literally never called a teacher. Why is that? Why don't we communicate with our teacher? I remember being a teacher and we had open house, and like 3 of the parents out of the 20 kids would be there at each of the sessions. 3 out of 20 would even be there. What is going on? I mean, is that teacher reluctance? I swear to goodness. So it's one of those where, like, this is a skill where we need to take this tool, the phone, become friendly with it, and literally, could you imagine a world where you were not afraid to call anyone? You could call the president or try to find the president. You could call literally anybody and have no fear about it. That's what Wally's talking about here with Phone Sales Secrets, is go to the point where even if you didn't call a ton of people, you wouldn't have the fear of calling anybody, right?
The freedom it gives you mentally, emotionally, psychologically is
unbelievable.
You can't put a price on that.
Unbelievable.
All right, so you know what's funny? Before I got sick, I went and got my eyes tested. At the age of 52, I still had perfect vision.
Jeez.
Perfect vision.
That's incredible. That is incredible. And then you got COVID and need glasses. Yeah. That's crazy.
It's crazy, right? Well, hopefully they'll go away. So lesson 1 is called, the name of the process is called the Call the Reluctance Crusher Method, the CRC.
Okay.
So lesson 1 is goes over the method. Lesson 2 is identify what is causing your call reluctance.
Ooh.
Lesson 3, a simple strategy to rewire your brain.
Woo.
Lesson 4, define your true why so you can become unstoppable. And then lesson 5 is the next step.
Are you kidding me with that? That's I mean, like, sign me up, baby. PhoneSalesSecrets.com to get his free mini course that he is giving to listeners of the Referrals Podcast. Go to referralspodcast.com. We will have a link directly to Phone Sales Secrets, or you can go to phonesalesecrets.com. Wally, this has been amazing. And, you know, you're an amazing dude with an amazing story. And
thank you.
What's interesting is you know, what's funny is I already liked you, respected you, and trusted you. But I think I trust, like, and respect you even more after hearing the prison story, after hearing what you've been through, after hearing that you've gone through COVID. And I've always known the content, right, was off the charts. But you know, I'm telling you, this was a fantastic, you know, like, for the listeners, is a lot of times you think, well, Michael knows everybody that brings on, knows everything about it. It's like, no, I don't. Like, here's the thing. I've really enjoyed this podcast as a conversation and a get to know you better. And I just really, really, really appreciate you coming on and talking about this is something that a lot of people avoid talking about, is call reluctance. And yet it's something that we need to put out there and help people with. And I'm glad you were here as an expert of that and helping people. This guy has helped thousands of people overcome call reluctance. And I see why. The name of the systems, the name of the processes, and the way he's going to a deeper solution than just pick up the freaking phone. He's not there, like, you know, pounding a phone into your ear. He's like, all right, let's deal with this. So I love it, Wally. I appreciate you very much. And thank you for being a guest on Referrals Podcast.
Man, I appreciate you too. And, you know, Sherry, for getting me on here. And I love seeing your updates from Max. You know, he hit that big dinger. He swung at the high cheese and then crushed it. I love seeing that. And listen, I know you have a big heart because of all the stuff you do on Facebook and the stuff that we see. So it means a lot to me that you're willing to take time to let me come and share some time in your podcast. So thank you so much.
100%. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in for another edition of Referrals Podcast. I encourage you to check out phonesalessecrets.com and Wally Bressler. Check out what he's doing. And also, while you're at it, go to joinGenGen, JOINGENGEN.com to join the generosity generation. In a future episode, I will share how maybe joining the generosity generation can help you overcome call reluctance as well. Isn't that interesting? So we will see you next time on Referrals Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.